Chapter 18, Vice President. The Vice President occupies the second highest office in the country. He is accorded a rank next to the President in the official warrant of precedence. This office is modeled on the lines of the American Vice President. Election. The Vice President, like the President, is elected not directly by the people but by the method of indirect election. He is elected by the members of an electoral college consisting of the members of both houses of parliament. Thus, this electoral college is different from the electoral college for the election of the president in the following two respects. Number 1. It consists of both elected and nominated members of the parliament. In the case of president, only elected members. Number 2. It does not include the members of the state legislative assemblies. In the case of president, the elected members of the state legislative assemblies are included. Explaining the reasons for this difference, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar observed, the president is the head of the state and his power extends both to the administration by the center as well as to the state. Consequently, it is necessary that in his election, not only members of parliament should play their part, but the members of the state legislature should have a voice. But when we come to the vice president, his normal functions are to preside over two council of state. It is only on a rare occasion, and that too for a temporary period, that he may be called upon to assume the duties of the president. That being so, it does not seem necessary that the members of the state legislatures should also be invited to take part in the election of the vice president. But the manner of election is same in both the cases. Thus, the vice president's election, like that of the president's election, is held in accordance with the system of proportional representation by means of the single transferable vote, and the voting is by secret ballot. All doubts and disputes in connection with election of the vice president are inquired into and decided by the Supreme Court, whose decision is final. The election of a person as vice president cannot be challenged on the ground that the electoral college was incomplete, that is, existence of any vacancy among the members of electoral college. If the election of a person as vice president is declared void by the Supreme Court, act done by him before the date of such declaration of the Supreme Court are not invalidated, that is, they continue to remain in force. Qualifications, oath and conditions. Qualifications. To be eligible for election as vice president, a person should fulfill the following qualifications. Number 1, he should be a citizen of India. Number 2, he should have completed 35 years of age. Number 3, he should be qualified for election as a member of the Rajya Sabha. Number 4, he should not hold any office of profit under the union government or any state government or any local authority or any other public authority. But a sitting president or vice president of the union, the governor of any state, and a minister for the union or any state is not deemed to hold any office of profit and hence qualified for being a candidate for vice president. Further, the nomination of a candidate for election to the office of vice president must be subscribed by at least 20 electors as proposers and 20 electors as seconders. Every candidate has to make a security deposit of Rs 15,000 in the Reserve Bank of India. Oath or affirmation. Before entering upon his office, the vice president has to make and subscribe to an oath or affirmation. In his oath, the vice president swears to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India and to faithfully discharge the duties of his office. The oath of office of the vice president is administered by the president or some person appointed in that behalf by him. Conditions of office. The Constitution lays down the following two conditions of the Vice President's office. Number 1, he should not be a member of either House of Parliament or a House of the State Legislature. If any such person is elected Vice President, he is deemed to have vacated his office seat in that House on the date on which he enters upon his office as Vice President. Number 2, he should not hold any other office of profit. Term and vacancy. Term of office. The Vice President holds office for a term of 5 years from the date on which he enters upon his office. However, he can resign from his office at any time by addressing the resignation letter to the President. He can also be removed from the office before completion of his term. A formal impeachment not required for his removal. He can be removed by a resolution passed by a majority of all the then members of the Rajya Sabha and agreed to by the Lok Sabha. This means that this resolution should be passed in the Rajya Sabha by an effective majority and in the Lok Sabha by a simple majority. It must be noted here that the effective majority in India is only a type of special majority and not in a separate one. Further, this resolution can be introduced only in the Rajya Sabha and not in the Lok Sabha, but no such resolution can be moved unless at least 14 days advance notice has been given. Notably, no ground has been mentioned in the constitution for his removal. The vice president can hold office beyond his term of 5 years until his successor assumes charge. He is also eligible for re-election to that office. He may be elected for any number of terms. Vacancy in office. A vacancy in the Vice President's office can occur only in any of the following ways. Number 1. On the expiry of his tenure of 5 years. Number 2. By his resignation. Number 3. On his removal. Number 4. By his death. Number 5. Otherwise, for example, when he becomes disqualified to hold office or when his election is declared void. When the vacancy is going to be caused by the expiration of the term of the sitting vice president, an election to fill the vacancy must be held before the expiration of the term. If the office falls vacant by resignation, removal, death, or otherwise, then election to fill the vacancy should be held as soon as possible after the occurrence of the vacancy. The newly elected vice president remains in office for a full term of 5 years from the date he assumes charge of his office. Powers and functions. The function of vice president are twofold. Number 1, he acts as the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. In this capacity, his powers and functions are similar to those of the speaker of Lok Sabha. In this respect, he resembles the American vice president who also acts as the chairman of the Senate, the upper house of the American legislature. Number 2, he acts as president when a vacancy occurs in the office of the president due to his resignation, impeachment, death, or otherwise. He can act as president only for a maximum period of 6 months within which a new president has to be elected. Further, when the sitting president is unable to discharge his functions due to absence, illness, or any other cause, the vice president discharges his functions until the president resumes his office. While acting as president or discharging the function of president, the vice president does not perform the duties of the office of the chairman of Rajya Sabha. During this period, those duties are performed by the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha. The constitution has not fixed any emoluments for the vice president in that capacity. He draws his regular salary in this capacity as the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. In 2018, the parliament increased the salary of the chairman of the Rajya Sabha from rupees 1.25 lakh to rupees 4 lakh per month. Earlier in 2008, the pension of the retired vice president was increased from rupees 20,000 per month to 50% of the salary per month. In addition, he is entitled to give daily allowances, free furnished residence, medical travel and other facilities. During any period when the vice president acts as president or discharges the function of the president, he is not entitled to the salary or allowances payable to the chairman of Rajya Sabha, but the salary and allowances of the president. Indian and American vice presidents compared. Though the office of the Indian vice president is modeled on the lines of the American vice president, there is a difference. The American vice president succeeds to the presidency when it fails vacant and remain president for the unexpired term of his predecessor. The Indian vice president, on the other hand, does not assume the office of the president when it falls vacant for the unexpired term. He merely serves as an acting president until the new president assumes charge. From the above, it is clear that the Constitution has not assigned any significant function to the Vice President in that capacity. Hence, some scholars call him His Superfluous Highness. This office was created with a view to maintain the political continuity of the Indian state.